Today on the bench we have a Superstar 140. So it's a black box radio, but actually a black box radio that does pretty well. Very clean signal out of it. Second harmonics, really nothing to speak of. Especially once I did the alignment on it. It pretty much filtered out the second harmonic completely on this. And probably because it's an early black box radio. So it's not made by RCI Ranger. It's a rather weird circuit board in it. Don't really see it a lot, and off the top of my head, I can't think of anything else I've ever seen it in. I'm pretty sure it has been used in something, but not anything that I've worked on, because I don't have anything documented. The only thing I have this board documented in my circuit board index is this radio. It's a JP, actually you can see it back here in the back. It's printed on both sides of the board. Tilt it up here, you can see it. JPM XX0168. Now it looks like it's probably, I would say that's probably a Cybernet. Reason I say that is the way they do, because you've got to remember it's a black box radio, it's an export radio, so it has 3 bands. Mid band is CB, and then a high and a low band of 40 channels. And the way they achieve that is with crystal switching. They did not, and this has a 1450-106 PLL chip in it. This thing can do gobs of channels, probably way more channels than this radio would broadband to. But they didn't take advantage of that. Cybernet was known for, especially there, because Cybernet made a lot of radio chassis for radios that never came to this country. Ham Internationals, Euro CB, a lot of those radios that were in the UK and a lot of the Euro countries had Cybernet chassis. And in those radios, when you switched bands, you were switching crystals. You weren't just programming the pins at the PLL differently. They just did crystal switching. And that's exactly what this has. So instead of having 1 crystal, it's got 3 crystals. So that's kind of a giveaway. The other thing is the JPM-XX. A lot of the other radios that had circuit boards that start with JPM-XX are some of the, like, the Ham 3900, a couple of the Euro CBs, a Dragon. Like I said, I just get the feeling Cybernet. Just by the way, and not only that, the weird circuit board layout. Everything's kind of shifted around, and yeah, it's just locations and whatnot. And this is an AM and FM radio, so FM circuits right here. Actually, the deviation adjustment's right here for your transmit deviation, but most of your FM receiver adjustments right here. But the receiver circuitry is really spread out different. It's kind of take a normal radio and kind of twist the circuitry around this direction. That's about how this is laid out. It has a 2078 final, a 2SC 2078 final, so it's actually the same final that you'll find in like a Cobra 29. That transistor has been around for a long time. A lot of people think, oh, this must be a new radio. No, this is early 90s, but the 2078 has been around for a long time. And that's what they used. So, like I say, fairly good radio. It's clean. It's never been butchered. I don't think anything's ever been done to it. And the reason I say that is this debauchery over here. So, there is no published schematic for this radio. And I'm not going to go through trying to reverse engineer this radio just for something that I'm not going to work on, right now at this moment anyhow. There is a modification for this thing for modulation, to increase modulation. In other words, turn it into a splatter box. And that part of that modification is this resistor here. It's removing the red wire off of it, taking a diode out, the red wire gets stuck in its place, and yeah, that's but it's never been done, apparently. Something I don't like is how that resistor's in here. So since the red wire is still attached to it, that kind of tells me it's a factory radio. But yeah, just you see that bare leads, bare long leads at that. So from the resistor the whole way out to here, that's just a bare wire, which could very easily come over and short out against the chassis. Yeah, you think they could have just cut them off to little pieces and stuck the wires on there, or put some tubing over it or something, but it is what it is. Oh, that's actually what I'll do before I put the cover back on this radio. I'll just desolder them, slide some heat shrink tubing over this, and resolder it. But yeah, that's kind of a crappy thing there. Other than that, it's a fairly good circuit board. Seems, I mean, it's flexible, but it's not one of the cheap junk boards that the circuit traces come off of. So the circuit board quality is okay for a radio like this. A lot better than a lot of radios I've seen. Control-wise. Oh, and it does have this fancy illuminated rings around all of the controls, as you can see. How they achieve that, actually, let me just turn the radio off here for a second. Unplug the mic. Don't need the antenna or the speaker. Just leave the power cord hooked up. But you can see they actually have a few light bulbs. There's one there, and then there's two more, one there and one down in there. And then they have, I think there's one more over, actually two more. It's one there. Oh, you can't see, it's out of camera view. Have one down there and one up there. And then basically what they have is kind of like little light, what they call light pipes, and it just kind of directs the light through to these little clear rings around the controls. But makes for a nice, nighttime illumination. So it does have high and low power. Now this is not a high power radio, so high power is just basically 4 watts, and then low power drops down to about 2. Has AM and FM, noise blanker, ANL, channel 9, CBPA, multifunction switch here for your meter, volume squelch, mic and RF gain, your SWR calibrate, your band selection control, and channel selector. I do like the amber. I don't know how that shows up in camera. It almost looks white or yellowish, but it's kind of more amber, has a little bit more, at least in person, it has a more of an orange tint to it. I like it. And in person, it's not very bright. I'm looking in the camera viewfinder. Yeah, it looks a lot brighter in a camera viewfinder than it does in person. It's one of those ones that you just look at and you go, it's a very soothing, very soothing color at a very non-eye retina burning out, light intensity. So, thumbs up for that. I wish there were a few radios over the years that have used that color, but not many. I really like that. I'd take that over red and green any day. I think it's very easy to look at, very well defined. I mean, red and green are fine too, but I kind of like that. Probably because you don't see it very often. But, so there's the top side of the radio. Like I say, the only thing that's kind of wonky and that's just the build of the radio. It's not like this was done by somebody other than someone at the factory. But, like I say, I'll get some heat shrink tubing on that. Underside, I'm going to go ahead and turn it off here. Again, board numbers down here on the bottom. The reflection right, so you can see it, JPM XX0168. Board quality is pretty good. It's definitely not FR4 board, but for what it is, couple Bodge wires here and one Bodge resistor. Those are all factory. But other than that, yeah, not a lot of factory Bodges. Because you look at some radios, oh my God, the bottom of the board's just covered with components and wires, and yeah, it's got to wonder what the hell they were thinking when they designed it. And not a lot of empty holes in this. There are a few, so like I say, this board, I know it's used in something else. I just, for the life of me, can't remember what other ones it was in. I mean, now the board does actually say, you can even see it down there, Superstar 140. But I just, for some reason, think this board was used in something else. And kind of the giveaway for that is empty holes. Like I say, there's not a lot of them, but there's obviously some holes in those. You've got a VR missing here. Actually, they call them RVs, but variable resistors, little trimmers. There's one missing there. There's one missing there. Bunch of components here to include 2 transistors, and not sure what the hell they'd be doing back there by the antenna. Unless that was for some other, maybe in a base station. Maybe that's what I've seen this in. A base station. I'd almost have to do some research and see what one it might have been. But like I say, a few components here. There's a header socket missing, a couple diodes, cap. Looks like a... I gotta pull that up my face. What the heck is that? Well, that's the schematic symbol for a light bulb. I guess they're just using that for a coil because it's marked L7, so it's an inductor. It looks like a light bulb. But there you go. I just thought I'd show this in case nobody's ever seen one, because like I say, they are kind of rare radios. You really don't see many Superstar 140s. This one, as you can see, is in very nice condition. It's been used. There is a little bit of scratching on the bottom of the bezel here. I had it taped up while I was working on it. I had untaped it so I could show it to you. But yeah, you can see the top of it, which is usually where most of your damage occurs on a bezel, is the top. So I get the feeling this thing was sitting on a desk or on a shelf somewhere, maybe in a closet, and got pushed around a few times over the years. And that's why it's scratched on the bottom, not the top. Because usually if it's in a mobile application, if this radio's ever been in a car, all the damage is usually at the top. And the covers are very nice, except for some little tiny rust spots. Right at the back edge, there's some bubbling. Covers are mint, but you can see the back edge there's a few spots where the paint didn't, it was just so thin at the edge, and moisture, I guess, has gotten in there, and it's starting to bubble it up a little bit. But other than that, the covers are, you can see that, really, really nice shape. It's a shame that little bit of paint damage there at the back end, but so there you go. Superstar 140 export radio. Oh, and what I did to it. Radio worked when I got it from the customer. All he wanted done was replace the electrolytic capacitors and have a transceiver alignment done, so that's what's been done. If you notice the coil is spread there, yes, it is supposed to be spread. You'll notice there's no... This is your last adjustment for the final transistor. Unlike a lot of radios that will have another coil that looks like this over here, closer to the antenna jack, and that would be your 54 megahertz trap adjustment. This does not have an adjustable one like this. They just use these coils down here, so that's actually the adjustment. So to adjust for your minimum output power on 54 megahertz, or your second harmonic, that's actually what you do, is you spread or squish the coil together to change, they actually change the its inductance. And like I say, spread it. It was just about like that. I think I spread this about two turns in. I spread that apart a little bit more. Was able to suppress the 54 megahertz to the point where it's basically almost not readable anymore in this. So yeah, good working little radio. The SWR bridge is just that teeny tiny little ferrite core down there. That's all they're using for an SWR bridge, because there's none printed on the board, or they're not using circuit traces. And there's no large core here, so yeah, they're just using that little tiny ferrite core right there with a couple little wraps of wire over it is the pickup for the SWR bridge. So there you go, Superstar 140.